Welcome back to the Untouchaballs podcast. Caden and Leo here. Caden, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good, Max. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I see you biasly have your Nuggets gear on today, but we're going to talk about some NFL, and more specifically NFL prospects, Caden. We got 3 more positions to go over today in our rankings, as tomorrow we release our official NFL mock draft, Caden.
Yeah, we've already been through our top 5 quarterbacks, our top 5 receivers in this draft class, and our top 5 tight ends, all in this draft class. Today, we're going through our running backs, edge rushers, and cornerbacks. And then, like he said, tomorrow you will be getting our full no-trade first-round mock draft. It's going to come out Wednesday morning. And then this weekend, you'll see me and Mex recapping what we saw from that first round, what we were seeing from that. So, a lot of draft stuff coming your way. Starting off, like he did say, though, we're going to be starting with our running backs. We're going to be giving our top 5 for each of these 3 positions, where with running back, I don't think number 1 needs much of a discussion.
I don't think so either.
Where it's Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. Had one of the best running back seasons in college football history last year with Boise State.
Yeah, Heisman finalist.
Barely, slight second place finish behind Travis, where he had one of the he was rivaling the rushing yards of Barry Sanders back when he had the most ever in a college football season. So what we're seeing out of Ashton Jeanty last year at Boise State is huge. Obviously, you do have the concern of his size, where he's not the biggest running back. 5'9", 5'8", does have some size, but he's able to bulldoze through the opponents, find the lane, and he does have that burst of speed to help accelerate and get past other defenders in the long run.
Yeah, a little concerns as well, going against, of course, the Mountain West opponents as well. A little bit of a weak conference. Doesn't necessarily help, but hey, this film and the product and everything speaks for itself, Caden. Looking at number 2, who I think may also be a general consensus as the number 2 back, who I think if Ashton Jeanty wasn't in this draft, he would be the number 1, and that is Omarion Hampton out of the University of North Carolina, Caden. Lots to like in this running back. He fits the mold as, do it all. Yeah. He's your ideal envision of what a running back is when you Google it in the, dictionary.
Omarion Hampton is a true, kind of dual threat running back. Where, he can run the ball well. Almost 1,700 rush yards, 15 rushing touchdowns last year for a not great North Carolina football team. And then also in the receiving game, just shy of 40 receptions, about 400 yards, 2 touchdowns. So you can work him in the receiving game. He has the hands. He probably has the best hands out of any running back we really have in this draft class. Maybe Cam Scatterbo, the only other competition for the best hands in this class for the receiving, though. He can do it both sides. Whoever drafts him is going to be happy because, not only is he good in the receiving game, he can run through defenders. He can get in the box, barrel through, get those needed, gritty yards. That he's a do-it-all type of back. And, like you're saying, if Ashton Jeanty was not in this draft class, Omarion Hampton would be the best. And Omarion Hampton is the reason why we might even see 2 first-round running backs go this year.
I think so, Caden. We're going to touch on that in tomorrow's episode, but I definitely do think that happens. Moving on to number 3, who do you have in this slot, Caden? I think this is where we're going to start seeing some diversity.
Yeah, definitely some diversity here, as the top 2, those are, some people might have Omarion Hampton over Jeanty, but those are the top 2 running backs. Now it gets a little more fluid, as this is probably the deepest position in this year's draft class. There are so many very good running backs. For someone like Bishal Tootin, who was the fastest running back at the combine, out of Virginia Tech, kind of like a bowling ball type of player. He's not even really a top 10 running back in this draft class, and that just shows kind of how deep this class is. Where
it's so deep.
My number 3 in this class is Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, 6 foot 225. He's got that kind of bruiser size. And last year for Iowa, averaged 6.5 yards a carry against a Big Ten conference for the most part. They played. That's what the Big Ten is. They play defense. You might see some of these other, I remember when Texas was in the Big 12, it was always fun because you don't see really a lot of defense in the Big 12. Big 10, that's what they're known for. They're known for playing their lockdown defense. A lot of people like to run smash mouth football there. And that's what I would do with Caleb Johnson. And in doing so, 1,500 yards, 21 touchdowns where, he's going to be that kind of bell cow bruiser back that can do it for you. And he's no slouch in the receiving game either. He has definitely room to grow there. But if you get a team that can work well with him, kind of incorporate some screens. So I think he can also be very valuable in the receiving game as well. But his big, I guess, stature for him to stand on is that running game. He is one of the best just pure runners of the football in this draft class, I think, out of all the running backs. And that's why I have him here at 3. The best of the rest after Hampton and Genty.
Yeah, Caden, we're going to have some differentials because that's a player I don't even have in my top 5. Because remember, this is based on our projections and production and how they're going to succeed within the NFL, our guesstimations, and not necessarily a ranking of what they've done in college, if that makes sense to the viewers.
I mean, it's a little bit of both.
Correct.
You're taking what they did in college.
Obviously.
And then, we in our minds are evaluating who do we think are going to be the top 5 most successful out of these.
Basically, correct. Moving on to number 3, I actually have Quinshon Judkins out of the Ohio State University, who I've been a big fan of, Caden. Now, obviously, there's obviously some concerns with him being a two-headed monster with Henderson, who's another top back in this class. Kind of ridiculous that both of them went to Ohio State. There's a reason why they're the national champions this year, Caden, for a reason. He is huge. He is explosive. He can carry the rock. He can bulldoze, Caden. So much to like. Not only that, he's got the ability to grow and adapt and to mature because there is still time for him to adjust with his IQ, with what he can do in offenses, and diversify his skill sets. I see him as a potential running back that's going to explode and excel and really burst out on the scene within, I think a year or two in this NFL. And I'm very excited with him as a prospect, Caden, and a lot to like.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny. Both of our number 3s on our list are not on each other's lists. I actually don't have Quinshon Judkins in my top. I think he is definitely probably number 6 or 7 on my list right there. Where
you probably have his teammate though, right?
I do have his teammate who I'm gonna get to in a sec. But when we're talking here about Quinshon Judkins, he came over, transferred from Ole Miss, where he was the true number 1 back there leading that offense. And now you get to Ohio State last year, where you have that two-headed monster with Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, with Will Howard, and obviously that whole offense was incredible. But that running back duo was incredible with Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson. Quinshon Judkins, like you're saying, he has all that size, the bruising ability that kind of Travion Henderson lacks. Travion Henderson is my number 4 back on my list, where his size 5'10", 205. Definitely the smaller back out of the 2 there with the Ohio State guys. But once again, kind of with what I've said out of Amari and Hampton, and even a little bit with Caleb Johnson, I like the dual threat ability with Travion Henderson a little more than Quinshon Judkins, where we've seen Henderson be able to really take off in the pass game, have those big explosive plays there, where we saw in the semifinal game of that college football playoffs against Texas at the end of the first half. It seemed like Ohio State was just going to try to run out the clock. They were on a little screen with 20 seconds left. All of a sudden, he takes it 80 yards of the house for a touchdown. Like, he has that big kind of explosive one-play touchdown ability. That's why I think he will slot in there for me at 4.
Most definitely, Caden. Now moving on to my number 4, which this is where I'm going to clarify in my list. I'm going to snub off a lot of really good running backs.
He is snubbing a lot of really good running backs.
Because there is 2 individuals specifically that I want to talk about, because I specifically watched one of them in person and the other one absolutely carve up the Colorado Buffaloes in front of my face. And first of all, we're going to start off with R.J. Harvey out of the UCF University. Got to see him in person this past year. If you just look at his measurables, his accolades of the last 2 years, putting up 1,000-yard seasons, he is absolutely impressive with his speed. A little bit of a smaller back, but he is a bruiser. He can do a lot with his hands, Caden. And I think, honestly, I'm going to put this out there. I've said it a million times about him since I've watched him. He's going to develop into one of these backs that's going to last in the league. And I think when we look in 4 or 5 years at this draft class, Caden, we're going to see R.J. Harvey's names as a list of one of these people who's still producing, at least still on an NFL team and thriving in the league. That's how I firmly feel about him. I really like his hands. I just like so much about his player and his character and who he's going to become in the NFL. And there was no chance I was going to go this draft episode without mentioning him, although he's not going to go in the top 2, probably not the top 3 rounds potentially.
Yeah. No, he's a day 3 pick for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But you look at R.J. Harvey. I didn't know much about him going into this college football season. And then it was you who really started talking him up to me after you were at that game. You're like, this running back's legit. He's got that speed. He's got that kind of power and burst. But started watching a lot more of R.J. Harvey. And he's really good. I don't have him here in my top 5. I think he's more that back end of that top 10 over there, more with like that Byshul Tootin, who I mentioned earlier. But RJ Harvey does, I think, like you were saying, have that ability to just continue to produce and have a sustained, and like you're saying, he seems like he should be able to sustain a pretty long NFL career, obviously barring injuries or anything like that. But
and along with running backs is 7-8 years potentially.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's just sweet.
RJ though, definitely someone you put on my roster. I'm excited to see what he will be able to actually produce at that next level.
And, like we've mentioned before, this class is so deep. You've mentioned so many guys. I've honestly kind of just wanted to make sure we diversify and cover a good amount of different prospects, just considering how good it is as well, including these guys.
So, yeah, my number 5 is an SEC running back out of Tennessee, and Dylan Sampson, where he was one of these the best touchdown-producing running backs last year, where he was able to put up 22 touchdowns on the ground. And that's against Alabama, Georgia, Texas, all these premier SEC schools, with a lot of these SEC schools having some of the top defenses in college football. And Dylan Sampson, about 6 yards a carry, 1,500 yards, 22 touchdowns. Like, he was able to really help control that Tennessee offense, which was having Nico Iamilava starting his first career football games last season in college football. So to have that running back be able to really control that offense, kind of help control the clock, control the game, I think is big. And I can really see that translating to the next level, where you get him on some team where he's not going to start right away. I could see him kind of having a rookie season like we saw out of Ray Davis in Buffalo. Obviously had that great time in Kentucky, was like a 4th-round pick, then produced as like a backup kind of third stringer, but when he got his opportunities, he showed why he belongs. I think that's what we're going to see out of Dylan Sampson, at least in that rookie year, as he continues to carve out a role for himself.
Caden, when you're able to find the end zone at a high clip, no matter what the level, that is a good sign of a good ball player. That is one thing you like to see out of him, and he's definitely one of those guys that I was going to have around here, my 5, 6, 7-ish slot right around there towards this back end or like, let's say, middle end of this top 10. But looking at my number 5, I got another guy who absolutely demolished the Colorado Buffaloes. And not only that, a lot of teams you played this season, and I think got overshadowed with just how inconsistent and how much of a drop-off Kansas had. And that's Devin Neal, right? He's got, again, when you talk about diversity in the route running ability, the catching the ball, what he can do out the backfield, very pro-ready. I think he's a plug-and-play in a lot of good systems, and a player that's going to be able to develop and fit in, learn a system, learn a scheme in the NFL, and be a player that coaches like, that they're going to want to coach, that he's going to develop well with.
Yeah, I mean, Devin Neal absolutely torched your Colorado Buffaloes. We watched him go for over 200 yards against that team.
I believe it was 246 off the top of my head.
It was a lot. He controlled and dominated that game. But when we're looking at this draft class, Devin Neal isn't really someone I considered for this top 5. Didn't even give him, I thought of his name, and that was basically about it. Where, I like Devin Neal. I think he could end up producing at the next level. But, I mean, once again, this just kind of shows how deep this running back class is. Where, Devin Neal, he's your number 5. I didn't even think about him.
Correct.
Neither of us named Cam Scatabo.
We haven't even talked about, which we've loved this entire
Cam Scatabo, we love. Yeah, exactly.
We love Cam Scatabo.
Me and Max were talking because of this, how deep this class. We were thinking about doing just a whole episode, basically just talking about running backs.
We probably should have.
Not really enough time now.
We don't got enough time.
Yeah, no Cam Scatabo. I didn't do Quinshon Judkins. You didn't do Travion Henderson. There's so many very good running backs. I think from round 1 to 7, teams are going to be finding valuable backs.
And which I will say now before I guess I'll say, never mind, I'll say that later in the draft. But I guess we should keep this going before this episode's an hour long. Edge rushers, Caden. A lot of nice ones in this year's
Very
draft.
nice one. Well, this one might not be as deep as the running back class. This top end talent, though, is insane for the edge rusher class, where both of our number 1 edge rushers, I'd assume, is going to be a top 5 pick at worst, most likely a top 3 pick.
At worst, top 4.
Actually, at worst, top 4. Because if he falls to New England at 4, they're going to probably take him. So It's Abdul Carter out of Penn State as the best edge rusher in this class. Exactly what he just straight monster. Can completely change a game on the defensive side of the ball.
Game record, game changer, high motor, high energy, lengthy, explosive, D-end that you want on your team. You can do it all. There's so much good things you say about Abdul Carter.
Yeah, I mean, this past season really was his breakout season, where in his first 2 seasons at Penn State, he only combined for 11 sacks.
Not bad, though.
No, not bad at all. This season, though, 12 sacks on his own. Also 4 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles, 68 total tackles. Just one of the best defensive linemen in all of college football.
Commanded a lot of attention from whatever team he played this year.
Wait, you would see it during the playoffs. Especially during the playoffs, as Penn State was able to go on this little bit of a run.
Correct.
Teams were doing, because even at that point, Abdul Carter was hampered. He was dealing with a foot issue that wasn't making him 100%. Teams were still chipping him, double teaming him to make sure he wasn't the reason they lost that game. They were going to call these college teams, like whether it be like Notre Dame, someone, they were doing whatever it took to make sure Abdul Carter wasn't the reason they lost that football game. And I think that's going to translate to the NFL, where teams are going to be making sure Abdul Carter doesn't lose them the football game.
100%, Caden, you are right. Now looking up at number 2, where we may or may not have some discrepancy. I don't know, but it's a player we both are high on, I know for sure, so I know you got him on here. Mike Green. Oh my gosh, Caden, so much to love about this player. High motor, high intensity, high energy, can do it all. Led his team, led sacks in FCS. What more do you want from him, Caden?
Yeah, Mike Green, I'm not going to say too much on him because I will have my piece on him here in a little bit. I don't have him at number 2. He's a little further down, but Mike Green out of Marshall, one of the premier edge rushers in this year's draft class, one of the best edge rushers in all of college football. What was it? I think it was 17 or 17 and a half sacks last year for Mike Green. So what he's able to do and just wreck the game is true. I was close. Like this, my 2 through 4, I think all 3 of them could be flipped to any other position. I think they are just so close.
I don't disagree with that.
Where my number 2 is James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee, where not only does he have the size, where he's 6'5", 243, has the production, where over the last 2 years at Tennessee, he's put up 17 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and just insane. But also what he was able to do at the combine, where he was the fastest out of every edge rusher, ran a sub 4.5 40. It was a 4.47 40 at 6'5", 240. Yeah, give me that elite speed and explosion off the edge and get to that quarterback.
Most definitely, Caden. He is a monster. I'm not going to touch on him because I got my piece here in a little bit. Number 3, who's on your list?
Number 3, I have Mykel Williams out of Georgia, 6'5", 265. Another edge rusher with some really good just size. And while, if you look at the stats, there's going to be another player I don't mention. This is kind of like, in a way, with Shamar Stewart, where I don't have Shamar Stewart in my top 5, where I know he has that insane kind of freak athleticism. I just haven't seen him produce at a high enough level for him.
For sure.
Mykel Williams is also an insane athlete, insane kind of thing. He also doesn't have that type of insane production, but it is definitely bigger and more than what you see out of Shamar Stewart, where I think Mykel Williams, he definitely, I think, will be a first-round draft pick. I think he's going to be able to fit into an offense, get slotted on that edge, and be able to wreak havoc. I just think he's going to need a little more development than some of these other top edge rushers. Even so, though, I do have him at number 3, as I think that potential with him outweighs my 4 and 5 and even like a Shamar Stewart.
Caden, I think you and I are right on the same page when you talk about our 2 through 4 being very rotatable, because I also have Mykel Williams as my number 3. And again, like you said, that 2 through 4 spot, you can slice them any way and dice them. Where they're going to end up, I think, plays a big part in the scheme, the coaching, and the ability of the development of these players. Of course, that goes for all positions, but more specifically within these talents, because it's a lot of very similar, attributes and talent levels. But how is that production going to change at the NFL? That's what's going to be exciting. But again, I have Mikael Williams at number 3. I think he's a solid prospect, like you said, for all his measurables. Definitely increase in production. That's kind of like what you see out of, Mikael, and you mentioned Shamar Stewart, who I'm going to have here later. They need to pick that up, right? And that's what you're going to like to see is more statistics. That's what teams are going to pay you the multi-million dollars for, not just to be a good, run stuffer, but as also what Mikael Williams brings to the game. At very worst, Caden, he's going to set the edge. He's going to play fundamental, hard-nosed, aggressive football and be a tone setter for your defense, third down or first or second down player, and, be a really solid against the run pass rush option as well.
Definitely agree with you. Number 4, thou. Who do we have, Max?
I got James Pierce, kid, and you talked about him. Oh, my gosh, is this guy, a lot to love. And especially with the Combine, I think the Combine definitely helped his stock as well, like you said, kid, with him being such a good mover, explosive, lots to like. You get him in the right room. This is one of these players that Caden has, defensive rookie of the year potential all over it. You get him with the right team, the right coaching staff. A lot of potential for these guys, a lot of excitement for this 1 through 4, I would say, is elite edge rushers.
This next player who I'm going to talk about is Mike Green out of Marshall. We kind of mentioned him earlier. This is a guy, though, who I really hope gets into a good scheme, because I think he could be a very productive edge rusher for most teams. Like, I don't see him falling, but if he could fall, my ideal landing spot for Mike Green would be the Lions, to line him up opposite of Aiden Hutchinson.
That'd be
I just don't see him falling that deep. Because Mike Green, I think, is insane. Yeah, like I said, 17 sacks last year for Marshall, 81 total tackles. So now that he can stop the run, he can insanely well attack the passer. And when he gets past the offensive line, he's not like getting fooled easy or anything like that by some of these. He's not getting juked out or anything by a lot of these quarterbacks. He's able to come in, make that tackle. I know it's a Sunbelt school in Marshall,
correct,
so you might not be seeing the athleticism of a lot of these big-time quarterbacks. I still think Mike Green, from Lamar Jackson to Kirk Cousins, is going to be able to be an effective pass rusher at the quarterback.
Most definitely, Caden. Lost to like. I had him at my 2. Again, 2 through 4, very rotatable. Coming in at number 5, Caden. Who closed off your list? I think, let me guess, Boston College?
It is Boston College. As I was deciding between, I thought Shamar Stewart might be my number 5 here. But I'm like, I think Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College might just be a little better. Obviously, he doesn't have the size as a lot of these other guys we've named.
Correct, but his production's there.
Yeah. Like, he doesn't have that kind of insane size of a Shamar Stewart, who's like 6'5", 250 almost. Ezeraku, 6'2", 245. So may not as much height. Still good weight there. And last year at Boston College, he was a Power 4 conference in the ACC, 2 teams in the playoffs there. So 16 and a half sacks, which was second in all of college football, only behind Mike Green. Also 3 forced fumbles, so he's getting that ball out, 80 total tackles. So he basically was as productive as Mike Green last year against better total opponents, just with a little less size. And I think that's the only reason I don't maybe have him higher up on this list, as he's been extremely productive his whole college career. I think we really saw him break out this year. I think he can keep leading him more and more forward. That's why I really have him ahead of the Shamar Stewart there.
Correct, Caden. And when you're talking about production above all else, like we mentioned earlier, that is an established sign. If you can get it done, you can play football, they will find you. And I think he's a for sure example of that. When you look at the numbers, so much to like. Just the small frame is one of the concerns, Caden, why I have him flipped with Shamar Stewart. I think when we look at the projection and longevity of how these players pan out in the NFL, I do think Shamar's got a little more upside and more potential just as a prospect as a whole, although he lacks the production, which is why I have him at number 5, Caden. Like we've talked about, explosive speed, nastiness. When he bursts and you see it rush consistently, he is a monster that cannot be stopped. How consistent are we going to get him on the field? What's his motor going to be like always, Caden? Those are some of the questions we have on him. That's why you don't have him on the list, obviously. But like you said, kind of flip-flop there for me at 5 and 6 as well. That rounds out my top 5 there.
So one more position left for us to go through for you guys here in today's episode. If you have made it this far, make sure you guys leave a like on the video if you have enjoyed. But yeah, now we're going to go into our cornerbacks, which this is another very good position here in this year's draft class. Number one, I'm going to have you start because I'm interesting. Because if you watched our wide receiver episode, I did not have Travis Hunter in there as I thought he would be, as I'm going to have him here in my corner list. You had Travis Hunter as your number one receiver. Do you also have him here in your corner list?
Well, of course, Caden Carabins. We're talking about the Heisman Trophy winner, for crying out loud. Travis Hunter is also the best defensive back in NFL. When we talk about IQ, we talk about play recognition, we talk about his on-ball and off-ball abilities between press, man, and zone. He can do it all. He's got the most elite ball-playing skills of any cornerback, as he is also the best wide receiver in college football. And the awards, the accolades, the statistics say that, Caden. He's going to shut down an entire
Actually, the awards don't say he's the best corner.
Oh, sorry. The Thorpe. Yeah, the one award.
The defensive back award.
The one award of all
the defensive back of the year award. Snubbed.
Right.
Whoa, Johnny Barron definitely deserved it, but
he deserved it. But Travis Hunter's the best back in college football.
I do have Travis Hunter.
You could ask Tedderoy McMillan about that one, Caden, if you really want to go there. But like I said, freak athleticism, press coverage, play recognition. How many times do we see Travis Hunter be covering a guy, absolutely drop off his man and snipe an interception off the quarterback who is unsuspecting of him being able to even reach out 8 feet off in the other direction to make that play? Again, the most insane player I've ever witnessed with my own two eyes, Caden. And he's up there with Jokic and Peyton Manning, who I've also seen live in person in front of my own two eyes, Caden, which just goes to show you the immense amount of spectacularity that is the specimen of Travis Hunter.
So yeah, I mean, I also have Travis Hunter here, number one in my cornerback rankings, as I do think he is the best cornerback in this draft class. Like I said, I didn't have him in my wide receiver rankings, where I think what would be best for not only the NFL teams, but for Travis Hunter. If you're primarily a cornerback, if you're running 100% of the defensive snaps, but then we also have some packages and plays for you on offense. So you're not getting, so maybe you're playing, 20 offensive snaps, 15, 20 offensive snaps a game, but not almost like you're not playing 160 total snaps because you're playing the whole game or whatever. So yeah, you look at Travis Hunter. Everything you said is basically one. Great size, 6'1", 185. Great size there for a corner. He's got the speed. Yeah. He's got the amazing jump ball ability from being a receiver. He's not going to be like a lot of other corners who can get up there and get the jump ball. They just don't know how to catch. Think of Travis. He definitely knows how to catch. He's going to be a true ball hawk type corner for whatever team gets him there early in that top 4 picks.
Yeah, he's exciting, Caden. But one of the guys you mentioned, Jim Thorpe winner, Johnny Barron. Again, lot to like, Caden. I think what's very interesting at a lot of these positions, we kind of, other than edge, we kind of both agree on who are the top 2 at each position.
I don't have Johnny Barron in my top 2, so
what?
So it'll be a second.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
keep going with your Johnny Barron speech, though.
You talk about being able to be in the SEC, Caden, help this Texas team propel. I think he was one of the big reasons why they were competitive within that defense. You talk about a smart corner. You talk about his physicals. He measures up well. And, there is also another corner behind him that I think, also is very good, Caden. But you just talk about his production, his consistency. He's going to be on the field. Mm-hmm. That is one of the things that I think puts him above the player that I have at 3 and you have at 2. Now that because I'm peeking over here. But let's talk about your number 2 then.
So yeah,
we're gonna hop right into
Johnny Barron. I loved. He was a very big piece of that Texas defense, which was one of the best in the country last year. But I do have Michigan cornerback Will Johnson ahead of him, 6'2", 202. I know we barely got to see him play last year because of a couple different injuries, especially that turf toe.
Yeah, turf toe, then hamstring.
Yeah. But when Will Johnson is on the field, he is as locked down as a corner can be in college football, where he's not letting anything pass him, not allowing anyone to score on him as well. Like, he's a true lockdown type number 1 corner. And well, yeah, I think it's close between him and Travis Hunter for 1. I do, obviously, like I said, have Travis Hunter 1 just because I think because of his ability, knowing the receiver as well is going to help lift him above as a corner. Will Johnson, yeah, the injury last year wasn't great. It would have been awesome to see a true full junior season out of him before the draft. Even still, though, I think with that size, what we've been able to see with him in the past, like especially like on that national championship team, where he was anchoring that secondary, I think he's going to be a great pick for any cornerback hungry team.
Yeah, kid, I'll go ahead and talk about him right now because he is my number 3. And the only reason why he is 3 is because of those injury concerns. Like I said, I'm not sure how much I like a prospect who comes limping it out of a season and coming in with a lot of injury concerns. Typically, if you're off the field a lot in college, you're going to be off the field a lot in the NFL, and that's one of the worries that I have with him specifically. But I hope not because, like you said, when he is healthy, when he is prime and he is playing, he is a shutdown all-world corner with all-world potential. It's going to be exciting to see where he ends up. And, because I think if he ends up on a team that's got a decenter cornerback one, or at least a veteran guy that can help take the pressure off him, it'll be better. But unfortunately for him, he's most likely going to go to a situation where he's going to have to be that cornerback one off rip, which I don't know if that's going to be able to be good for him initially. We're going to have to see how that shapes out, kid.
So, yeah, like we kind of mentioned earlier, I do have Jahdae Barron here at 3. The biggest reason in my eyes is the size, where Will Johnson, 6'2", 200 pounds for Jahdae Barron, only 5'11", so 3-inch difference. I think that, in my eyes, that was the biggest kind of decision of flipping them in a way. But Jahdae Barron, insane season last year, was the best corner or DB in football last year, won that award. And yeah, he was a reason why Texas had one of these top defenses, was able to make it to the college football semifinals, had those big plays, especially against ASU late in that game to help secure that win. But yeah, he's able to get you done in coverage, pinpoint the ball, make the interception, lock you down. I think these top 3 corners between Hunter, Johnson, and Barron are all going to be future number 1s for teams for years to come.
I really hope so, Caden, because there is a lot to like with all 3, and I'm a big fan of all 3 of these prospects, particularly number 1. But looking at my number 4, Caden, we're probably going to have some discrepancies because this is a guy that's probably a little tad lower on a lot of people's lists. I feel like what I saw, but who I'm a fan of that's Trey Amos from
Ole Miss,
Caden. Then this is why. SEC experience, going up against these top players week in, week out, he's going to get a variety of offenses. He's getting all these techniques thrown at him. He knows how to play these different coverages. He's got the IQ. That's going to help him, I think, when you go to the NFL, when you talk about learning, developing in a system, and finding yourself a spot at that next level. Also, the measurables, the stats, they all line up and support that as well. He's going to be a solid prospect and number 4 on my list.
I like Trey Amos. I don't have him on my list. I had him probably is at like 6'7", right on the S. Yeah. I do think he's a very good cornerback, a cornerback that we could possibly see go late in round 1, early round 2.
Correct.
That he's very good. He's got that SEC experience, all that. My next corner also has SEC experience, not also that, but he also was not only the fastest corner, the fastest player in all of the 2025 NFL Combine, and that is Kentucky Wildcat corner Maxwell Hairston, who at 6'1", 185, ran a 4.2, 840. Was one of only 2 players to go sub 4.3. And he's able to do that at corner. We were able to log down. We didn't see, obviously, the big season for Maxwell Hairston was his sophomore season in 2023, where he was really productive, not only in the air getting interceptions, but he was also able to make tackles. Last year, we didn't see as much. He also didn't play as much, was hampered by injuries to only playing 5 games last year. So another, I guess, kind of injury guy that I do have on my list. But for him to go out to the combine, be recovered from that injury, and run a 4.28, it makes me seem like even if it might still be a little lingering, it's okay. He's got the hands, the ability to tackle in the open space, that when you add that speed on top of him, definitely a top 5 corner in my eyes.
Yeah, okay, and then he rounds out my list, of course, too. When you talk about the speed, you talk about the measurables, statistically, he's everything you want in a corner. You talk about a guy who's going to need to go up against the Justin Jeffersons, the Tyreek Hills, these explosive route-running technicians. You need a guy who's got that recovery speed, who can adjust on the fly. Maybe he does get caught on the first move. He's going to be there on the second. But again, because of those concerns with being off the field, Caden, I've mentioned it this entire episode, that concerns me a lot, especially when I go into these rankings. I do take that into consideration, especially when you look at recent years of that showing within the NFL. Some of the guys who have been, very consistent and even good players, like a Tua, who have limped throughout college, typically limp throughout the NFL, which I'm a little concerned about, especially at cornerback, because that's one of the hardest positions. I got it as like the 3rd hardest position in football, Caden. But let's hear who you have rounding out your list at number 5.
So yeah, my number 5 corner I do have here is at another injured player. So that's, you can see our differences.
You can see why.
And also going into this past year's college football season, he was my number 3 corner on my draft board. It was going into last college football season, I thought it was Will Johnson, Travis Hunter, and then Shafon Ravel Jr. out of East Carolina, where 6'3", 193. So he has amazing height here for a corner, kind of like Tariq Woolen out in Seattle. And I know last year we didn't get to see him play like at all because he tore his left ACL. That's not good. That's not a good injury by any means.
Good,
I know how that left ACL feels. But that happened early in the season. He's going to be able to be healthy in time for training camp, maybe even for some of the OTAs this summer, that he'll be able to work in, start figuring out a true NFL-style defense, work in there. And I know he hasn't played the most elite competition, playing for East Carolina. You're playing a Conference USA schedule. But at 6'3", 190, NFL DB coach will be able to work up that technique a little bit more. I think just that size and what we've seen from him in the past puts him for me at number 5 for what he can be in the future, kind of like what Mex said, we are projecting towards the future. I do like him, have him at 5, just ahead of like Trey Amos there at 6.
Yeah, most definitely, Caden. Very solid list. We talked about a lot of prospects. A lot of deep insights. Thank you guys for listening. If you made it all the way through, Caden, but what should these people do before they get out of here?
Yeah, make sure you guys like this video if you did enjoy. Leave a comment. Who do you guys have inside your top 5 of running backs, edges, and corners that we didn't have? Or is there anyone we're way too high on or way too low on in your guys' eyes? Make sure you guys turn on post notifications so you never miss an upload, and share this with your friends, family, strangers, neighbors, anything like that.
Most definitely, we appreciate y'all. We thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all next time.